Hi everyone, I'm Tommy,
I'm Mackenzie.
and welcome back to Backstage Thoughts. Both of us are former Disney College Program participants. We both did the program from January 2022 to May 2022, and we figured it would be a little bit beneficial, maybe to people that are considering doing the program as well, to talk about our experience there and kind of share our thoughts about whether or not it is actually worth it to do the program. This might be a little bit of a long video. We do have quite a bit of things to talk about, and there are a lot of factors that you should consider before deciding whether or not to move down to Florida for a couple months and work for the mouse. And I want to preface this by saying I think we both enjoyed our experience there. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, for sure.
But just because we had a positive experience may not mean that everyone has a positive experience, and we're going to talk about the reasons why that may be in this video. So some positive things we have to say, some negative things, and then hopefully at the end of this you can kind of make your own decision about what's right for you personally based on what you are trying to get out of the program.
The Disney College Program is advertised as a way to gain money, earn college credits, and overall just the experience of working at Disney.
So I have a quote from their website. I don't remember exactly where I got it from, but it's somewhere on one of Disney's many websites about how they describe the Disney College Program. So they say, discover a unique living and working environment with participants from all over the world. Disney College Program allows you to gain on-the-job experience with a world-renowned company, providing uniquely Disney learning experiences, all while preparing you for your future, building transferable skills, including networking, problem-solving, teamwork, and effective communication. They very obviously kind of advertise it as something that's going to give you these great skills that like you can't get anywhere else and are going to be super helpful in your career, and they're going to, boost your career path and all of that. And we'll talk about the reality of that in depth in a minute, but essentially you don't do anything different from any other cast member. You're just a cast member. You just work at Disney. You're not getting any new skills that other cast members aren't getting. You're not, they're not teaching you how to run a company like Disney or anything like that. All of these alleged skills and qualities that you're going to pick up are just things that they're claiming that all of their cast members have, I guess. It's advertised as something different from the normal cast member experience, something better than just simply working at Disney, when in reality that's not really the case.
When we applied for the Disney College Program, it was post-COVID.
It had just come back. They suspended the program for a while. Obviously, all the parks closed down for a little bit there. And then even once they opened back up, they had the college program still suspended. So we were kind of that first wave of people that came back. So the application process was a little bit different.
Yeah, so usually there's a phone interview, but in our case, we did a web-based interview, which basically was just lying that you're an extrovert.
Yeah, it's like how can I trick them into believing that I'm actually outgoing? It's like they give you questions like, all right, I guess I'm just picking the most outgoing option, and then you pass.
Essentially, that's all you really have to do to get accepted to the program.
And there are kind of pros and cons to that. Pros, it's a lot less work on your part as an applicant. But the cons is that they didn't really have anything to base quality on, and they just kind of accepted everyone. So it kind of lessened the value of being able to put it on a resume, because everyone that applied pretty much got in. And in addition to that, with the phone interview, part of that was your ability to kind of explain what roles you would prefer to do. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do at Disney. It's not just all working in the parks and stuff like that. And during the web-based interview, part of that was kind of giving your preferences for different roles. With that step removed, not only did it, prevent them from being able to kind of eliminate some of the weird people or the less good at being a Disney employee people, it also took away that choice from DCP applicants.
Since then, the phone interview has come back. We are unsure if you have the role preferences now, but with the phone interview, it really helps to weed out those who might not be good applicants for the DCP.
Yeah, so at least that kind of makes sure that the people around you are normal and, good people. And in addition to that, if they do bring back role preferences as part of that, that's huge, because being able to kind of let them know, and of course, even if they do, there's no guarantee you're going to get the role that you that you want, but it makes it more likely that you're at least in some area that's sort of comfortable for you. Whereas under the process that we went through, the application process that we went through, your role was completely random. They could have placed you anywhere in any park or any resort or even ESPN Wide World of Sports. You could have been working anywhere doing anything and you had no say over it. So I have a list here that we compiled of all of the roles that we could remember. And without role preferences, you could arbitrarily be assigned any of these in any location, and potentially even maybe some we forgot. So some of the roles that we remember ourselves getting, or people around us getting, or people that we talked to getting, included attractions, food and beverage, custodial, which is like cleaning and taking out garbage, and anytime someone vomits, you go clean that up, in addition to other things. But that is something you may have to do, so keep that in mind. Children's activities, merchandise, park greeter, parking, costuming, housekeeping, concierge, transportation, which isn't like driving buses or anything like that. It would be like at the Skyliner, you'd be the person that tells people where to get on, or the monorail, you'd be like directing traffic to get onto the monorail, stuff like that. Watercraft, which, unlike transportation, actually does mean you drive boats. We knew someone that Disney was having them get their boating license so that they could drive the boats at Disney. So, yeah, interesting. Photo pass, and there are probably more, but those are kind of the ones that we remembered. Basically, you could be doing anything other than, being like a server, like a waiter or waitress or a bartender. Or another role you wouldn't get would be like a chef, unless you went to culinary school. So my roommate was a chef, but he had to apply like specifically for that, and going to culinary school was part of the requirements for that. And then also you won't be a performer again unless you like audition for that, which I think is a separate process from the regular college program application. But pretty much anything else is on the table.
The only other way that you can really have a say in where you're working is to apply for a medical accommodation, but you can't really make this up because Disney requires so many different forms to be filled out by a doctor, and there's just no way to get around that type of thing. So the medical accommodations are really hard to put in and get approved.
Unless you have a legit medical reason, don't file for a medical accommodation. I know so many people that tried that. Not that I know them personally, but I would see, like, I was in like Facebook groups and stuff. People would just like make things up, like, I get anxiety, I can't do housekeeping, haha. And Disney was just like, no. So don't try it. You're just going to make yourself look like a fool. There is one other way. I believe there is a process of requesting a role change. I don't know anyone that's done that successfully. The only other way that I do know to have your role changed is, there are two. One is if you actually come part-time or full-time, you can apply for a position in a different role. Sometimes they will have openings and they will give you the option to try to transfer into those roles. So when Galactic Star Cruiser opened, they gave people the option to extend their program as a Galactic Star Cruiser person instead of whatever their current role was. And the only other way is to be really, really bad at your job. And I think this only applies to attractions. Or maybe if anything else is safety critical. Basically, if you being really bad at your job is creating a safety issue, then they will force transfer you to a role like merchandise, where you can't hurt people. But other than that, I think those are really the only ways to have your role changed. So pretty much 99% of the time, whatever you get what you get and you don't get upset.
For transparency's sake, I was working at Caribbean Beach Resort in their quick service, and Tommy was working at Pirates of the Caribbean in attractions. Yeah,
so obviously that experience does kind of influence our perspective a little bit, so figured we'd let you know about that.
As we previously stated, CPs and other part-time, full-time cast members are doing the same roles And CPs are getting paid less than those other cast members at $14 an hour when everyone else is getting paid $15 an hour.
CP, by the way, stands for college program. It's like a abbreviation to refer to college program participants. We'll probably use it a whole bunch throughout the rest of this video.
Currently, there is a contract negotiation going on for part-time and full-time members of the union. However, CPs are not part of the union, so there's no guarantee that if part-time and full-time's pay is increased, that CPs will also.
So part-time and full-time cast members are paid overtime. They're paid time and a half overtime for any hours in a day more than 8 that they work. So if they have a 10-hour shift, they'll have 8 hours of regular base pay and then 2 hours of time and a half. And they're also paid time and a half overtime for any hours more than 40 in a week that they work. In addition to that, they are paid time and a half for the entire day if they are scheduled 6 days of work in 1 week. So the entire 6th day is time and a half. And if they are scheduled 7 days in a week, the entire 7th day is double time. So CPs do get some overtime pay. They still get time and a half for more than 8 hours in a day, and they still get time and a half for more than 40 hours in a week. However, the most important piece here is that CPs do not get any overtime pay for working more than 5 days a week. So that 6th day follows the same guidelines as the previous 5 did. If they work more than 8 hours that 6th day, yeah, they'll get time and a half for any hours over 8, but they do not get overtime just for working 6 days in a week. Additionally, they also don't get overtime for working 7 days in a week. So Disney can schedule you as many days of work a week as they want, and there's still no guarantee that you will get overtime unless you go past 8 hours in a day or past 40 hours in a week. CPs also don't get any say over their schedule. You have no ability to list preferences for times that you want to work, days of the week that you want to work. It is entirely up to your leaders to schedule you whenever they want to schedule you. You have no say whatsoever. And this issue is kind of compounded even further because unlike full-time and part-time cast members who are free to move around their schedules between themselves however they want, they can trade with each other, they can give away shifts, they can pick up shifts. CPs can only make even trades. So if you want a day off, the only way, and you're scheduled to work that day, the only way you're able to get that day off is to trade that day and pick up another shift for some other day that week you may have been scheduled off. You can only make even trades. You can't just give away that shift. And similarly, you can't just pick up a shift. The only way to pick up a shift is to give another one away. If you get special approval from a leader, you may be able to make lopsided trades where you just give away a shift or just pick up a shift, but under normal circumstances, it has to be an even trade. And this is obviously dependent on your leadership. Some leaders are more lenient with this, others are more strict with this. It's also hard to find people to trade with because CPs typically work the least desirable shifts. You work weekends, you work nights, I had shifts that would go until midnight or 1 a.m. I think my latest shift ever ended at like 1:45 a.m. No one else wants these shifts, so trying to find someone to trade with is very difficult. The only people who would be willing to trade with you are other CPs, but other CPs tend to work the same dates and times as you do. So because you have no say whatsoever over which days and times you're going to be scheduled to work, and because it's nearly impossible to move your shifts around once you are scheduled, it becomes very, very difficult to plan anything because you won't know when you're working and when you're not working until a week or a week and a half ahead of time.
Although this is probably seasonally dependent, we both were scheduled 6 days a week for most of our college program. Although my shifts were usually a lot shorter, like 6 hours at most, where yours were
It depended. I had a mix. I had some 6-hour shifts in there. I had some longer shifts. I really didn't have any medium length shifts.
Yeah, it was either short or extremely long.
Yeah, it was either 6 or like over 10. I regularly had like 12 to 14-hour shifts scheduled in there. And the result of this was that like even though you worked 6 days a week, pretty much every week, you never got overtime pay. because your shifts were so short that
Yeah.
you wouldn't eclipse 40 hours in a week, which is why it really makes a difference.
Every week I would max out at like 38 hours. That would be the most I ever had.
Right, which is why it makes such a big deal that part-time and full-time, their entire 6 days overtime, whereas you worked 6 days every single week and almost never
I think I
hit
saw overtime once, and it was like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Now, I did get some overtime in there because I was working 45 to 55 hours a week, and I had some shifts that were longer than 8 hours, but even then, it's less than it would have been because I had some like 6-hour shifts, and I had some shorter shifts in there so that, I would have made more if my entire 6th day was overtime than just adding up anything over 40 for the week or anything more than 8 in a day. And again, this is something that could change seasonally, right? They need more workers when they're busier. It's also that's something that could change based on your location and your role. But be prepared if you're going down to do the college program. Be prepared to work long shifts and be prepared to work 6 days a week because it's 100% a possibility. And I would even say it's likely, again, dependent on your role and the season. But I would say it's likely that you will end up working 6 days a week.
One of the biggest things Disney advertises with the college program is free admission to the parks, which would be a really good perk if you didn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get into the park. You have to have a reservation. You can only hold so many reservations at a time. And you can't park hop until 2 p.m.
Yeah, I don't know. I think things may be changing with this. I know Iger talked about getting rid of the reservation system, which would be huge. But the way it was when we were down there was you had to make a reservation beforehand to get into a park. And the reservation caps for cast members were much smaller than they were for the general public. So pretty much every park was completely filled up, like weeks ahead of time. So you couldn't get into a park unless you made a reservation ahead of time in advance, but you couldn't make a reservation in advance because you didn't know what days you were going to have off because you had no preferences for when you worked and when you didn't work. In addition to that, there were also blockout dates. I think the entire month of April was blocked out for us. Not everywhere, like some days you could get into these parks but not other parks, but I think for the entire month of April, at least one park was blocked out. Now, this is something they lifted towards the end of our program as a result to substantial backlash from cast members, and I think specifically CPs. They were like, we came down here to work and we were promised that we could go to the parks, and now we can't even go to the parks. What is this? And I think after getting a whole lot of backlash, they did remove a lot of the blockout dates. However, the reservation system still caused obstacles, because even though you technically could go to any of these parks, getting a reservation was still a nightmare. And as Kenzie mentioned earlier, you could only have 3 reservations at a time, meaning that if you did want to go to a park, in a particular day in the future, and you kind of took the risk that you might be able to get that day off by trading away a shift, that's now blocking up one of your options, and now you can only make 2 reservations. So it really became a problem to try to actually get into the parks when you wanted to get into the parks. And again, if the reservation system goes away, like Iger, kind of hinted that it might, this is huge for CPs. I mean, it's huge for everyone, but it's a huge reason to want to do the college program, because having the freedom to go to parks whenever you want is a much better perk than having to go through the stress and the hoops of trying to book reservations and hoping that you can get in, hoping you get certain days off. Like there were so many days where we just ended up going to Universal instead because we couldn't get into any of the Disney parks. And we don't like Universal that much.
No.
But
we have like 3 rides that we ride there. Yeah, that's it.
But it was really our only option because we couldn't get into any of the Disney parks, which is crazy because we work there.
Have I told you about how the one girl that I worked with, like, emailed Chapek because he was running the show when we were there, and the leaders called her into their office and they were like, what's going on? Why did you email him? She's like, did you read the email? It's about getting into the park. It's not about anything else.
Should I talk about how I emailed that one lady and had a meeting with that one lady?
Yeah.
Should I talk about that? So I emailed, I don't know what was going on. There was some like town hall thing they did for CPs at Magic Kingdom. And it was awful. Like, essentially, the theme of it was, like, stop complaining, you guys suck, do better. And people got very upset about it. I got very upset about it. So I sent an email to the lady who was doing it, who I think was, like, the vice president of Magic Kingdom or something. I don't really know who she was.
Yeah.
She was someone important. I'm sure she makes a massive salary. So I sent her this email basically explaining why everyone was so angry, because she completely missed the point when she was trying to be like, yeah, we're doing all these great things for you. And she was like, thanks for your email. I'm forwarding it to this other person instead. So she forwarded it to some other person who was like, works for not college programs, but Disney programs in general, all the different Disney programs, which I guess, how many are there? International
like
program.
3.
And yeah, I don't know. But essentially someone ended up calling me, and I just ignored the call. They left a voicemail. I didn't call back. They called again. And the second time I answered, because I saw the Florida number and I thought, oh, it's someone at Pirates. They're trying to get me to like come in early. And it wasn't. It was some lady that works for some secretary for the person who runs Disney programs. And she kind of like pressured me into scheduling a meeting. So I actually went and I had a whole meeting with this lady, where I was like, yeah, here's all the reasons why this program sucks, essentially. And that was that. Nothing really came of it.
Yeah, no.
Nothing really came of it.
We left like a month later.
Yeah.
So.
But I did do that. I did have a meeting with the head of Disney programs and told her why the college program is such an awful mess right now. Yeah, there's that. Anyway, let's get back on topic. Back on topic.
One of the other perks of working for Disney is that you get free tickets for your friends and family. Full-time and part-time cast members get guest passes, whereas college program participants only get complimentary tickets.
Essentially, the difference between the guest passes and the comp tickets is the guest passes that part-time and full-time get have unlimited uses. They do need a park reservation, but anyone can use them. They can use them as many times as they want, whatever. The comp tickets that CPs get are capped. You get 3 for every 150 hours that you work, and it maxes out at 9 per calendar year. So while full-time and part-time cast members have unlimited uses, they get 3 guest passes on unlimited uses. So they could have 3 people with them in the parks whenever they want, all the time. Whereas CPs get 9 total one-use things for the entire year. And of course, these are subject to reservations and blockout dates and all the same obstacles that our self-admission passes were subject to. There is technically a slight difference as well between the self-admission passes that CPs get and the main entrance passes that full-time and part-time cast members get, but I don't really know what the difference is. I don't know if it's like different blockout dates or what. There is technically a difference. I don't really know, and it didn't really have any sort of substantial impact on us while we were there.
There is discounted prices that you can get on merchandise, hotel rooms, and tickets that you're buying for someone else for the parks. The merchandise is 20% off, but recently...
Yeah, they bumped that up to 50 as part of the contract negotiations,
yeah.
Right? But I don't know if that's for everyone or if that's only union employees. I don't know. But yeah.
And then for hotel rooms, you get 40% off if you're booking for someone else, and then 50% off if you're booking for yourself. And for park tickets, it's 10% off, which really isn't a great perk for buying park tickets.
Oh no, you ran out of your 9 complimentary tickets. Instead of just giving you a guest pass like we give all of our other employees who do the same job, here is a very minor discount off of our $100 tickets.
You can literally get 10% off on like other websites.
Yeah, it's barely a discount. There are also some like little things that CPs can do that other cast members can't. Most, prominently known is, I guess, the behind-the-scenes tours that they have for certain attractions. The issue with these is, there's a couple of issues with these. First of all, they fill up almost immediately. So if you're not on, dorms? Yeah. If you're not on dorms, like, ready to register as soon as they drop, you're not going to be able to do it. The other issue is that most of them start at, 5 o'clock in the morning. So unless you feel like getting up at 4 a.m., which could come after your shift ends at 2 a.m. the previous day, you're not going to be able to do these.
And since you don't know your schedule more than a week and a half in advance, how are you going to know a month in advance when they drop if you can even go to it?
Yeah, I mean, well, they do it before the park opens, so there's a pretty good chance you won't be working at that time.
But if you're working until 2 a.m. the day before.
Well, you just don't sleep. That's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. You just don't sleep. It's not going to compete like with the time that you would be scheduled to work for the vast majority of locations, because you're going to be working nights in the vast majority of locations. But it's still not fun if you work a late shift the day before. There are also some additional benefits, additional experiences that you may have that are kind of location dependent. So, for example, I was able to ride Space Mountain with the lights on while I was working, and this wasn't like a planned benefit. This definitely wasn't something that most CPs were able to do. It just happened that I was closing that day. There was a wedding that night where the wedding party rented out Space Mountain for an hour, I think, from like 11 p.m. No, the park closed at 11, so I guess it was from like 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. or something. But it takes more time and effort to close down the ride and then open it back up an hour later than if they just kept it running. So for that hour, they just kept the ride running, and whoever was the coordinator at Space Mountain at that time sent some texts out to some of the other coordinators that worked in attractions at Magic Kingdom. And I just happened to be closing that night. My coordinator got a text and was like, hey, after you guys are finished here, if you want to go head over to Space Mountain and ride it with the lights on, they're doing some ride-throughs. So that was something really cool that we got to do. That wasn't planned. It wasn't part of the perks. It was just kind of right place at the right time sort of deal. And no one else was there. Like, this memo was very limited. It was pretty much just everyone, all the CPs that worked at Pirates, and then like a handful of other random people that happened to show up. But you will, again, depending on your location, you will likely have one or two experiences like that where you get to do something cool that you normally would not have been able to do.
I have no experiences like this.
Should I talk about some of the other ones?
No.
I shouldn't?
You're just rubbing it in.
I also got to ride Haunted Mansion with the lights on. What else did I get to do?
You just got to roam around Pirates.
Well, yeah, when it broke down, we just like climbed all over the queue and stuff. They had like there was a Haunted Mansion tour that we were supposed to be able to do, but they ended up canceling that because they realized they scheduled it for a time when people were working, I think, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but they ended up canceling that. There was some like Big Thunder Mountain thing where they left Big Thunder Mountain Railroad open for an hour after park closed for anyone that wanted to go ride it, but that wasn't anything special because it's not like you get to see different things that you wouldn't normally see like we did with Space Mountain.
If you happen to be working there when a new ride is opening, they do cast previews, which are pretty easy to get, and you get to ride the ride before it opens to the public, which we got to do with Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
I think they're either doing Tron right now or they just finished doing Tron.
I think they might still be doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, we had 3 different cast previews for Guardians. We went on the very first day, and that day we rode it twice, and then I think the ride broke down.
Yeah.
Then the next time we went, they limited you can only ride it one time. And then the third time we went, we were also able to bring guests. So Kenzie's relatives happened to be visiting or happened to be in Florida at that time, so we were able to get them on with us as well. And that actually was a massive pain in the ass the way they did that. It took us like an hour to figure everything out because the first 2 previews, you just show up, you scan your blue ID, and you're good to go. This one was not like that. It was a whole ordeal. But anyway, yeah, we got to do 3 different cast previews for Guardians, so that's a huge benefit as well if you happen to be working there when a new attraction opens up.
Flamingo Crossings Village is the housing that they have for the college program participants, and it's newly built housing that has a couple of amenities that you can use whenever you want, including a pool, a gym, basketball courts,
Wi-Fi that barely works.
The rooms are fairly nice. They come with furniture, a washing machine and a dryer, kitchen appliances. There's
a smart TV in each of them, a very cheap couch, a bed, obviously, desk. No, there's no desk. I had to bring my own desk.
There's 3 different styles of rooms. So a 4x4, which is 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, meaning each person has their own bathroom. 4x2, which is 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And a 2x2, which is 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Each room has 4 people staying in it.
Yeah, so a 2x2, you are sharing a bedroom with another person. 4x2, you're only sharing a bathroom. And 4x4, you are sharing nothing. You're selfish and you don't share with other people.
You just share a kitchen.
Okay, fair. All right, so I'm gonna cheat with my phone a little bit on this one because I have numbers written down here. We're gonna talk about rent. So rent for Flamingo Crossings is automatically deducted from your paycheck each week. That's another thing we forgot to mention. You get paid weekly instead of bi-weekly, which I guess is kind of cool. But rent is taken out automatically each week. And when we were there, the cost of rent was $185 a week for a 2x2, which is what I had. $205 a week for a 4x2, which is
what I had.
Kenzie had. And $225 a week for a 4x4. Quick break before we get into more about costs. I forgot to mention when we were talking about this earlier, you also don't get to choose which room style you get.
You can put your preferences.
But you're not going to get it.
I got mine. A lot of people don't get theirs.
Yeah, there are way more 2x2s than anything else. So you're probably going to end up in a 2x2, which is good because it's cheaper, but you have to share a bedroom with someone, which some people don't like. I didn't really mind it. Actually, I didn't have to. I wouldn't have minded it. But it actually worked out that the week I got there, my roommate self-termed, which essentially means he dipped. And I did not get another roommate until the week that I left. So that worked out pretty well for me. It's not going to work out like that for you. But yeah, you are, I want to say like 80% of people get a 2x2. So
especially, and if you're female, you will 100% have a roommate because there are just so many more.
You didn't have a roommate?
No, I mean like if you have a 2x2.
Oh, well, you mean like, okay. I get what
like
you're saying.
all of like my friends that I knew had roommates and if they were in a 2x2.
Well, everyone should have a roommate. The only reason I didn't is because mine quit early. Anyway, the prices were, again, between $185 a week and $225 a week when we were there. According to the website, they are now between $191 a week and $246 a week. So it doesn't really say what the 4x2 costs, but we can assume the 2x2 is $191 and the 4x4 is $246. So if we kind of extrapolate that number out, and we say that each month is 30 and a half days long, which, yeah, it is. That means, I did some math here, that means that monthly rent is between $832 a month if you have a 2x2 and $1,072 if you have a 4x4. Now, that alone is, you could say, there's two sides to this, right? You could say, oh, that's not terrible. We're paying $900 a month for a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom apartment right now. So yeah, I think even just for one person, that's a lot. But you also have to keep in mind there are 4 people living in each unit. There are 4 people living in each unit, each paying this amount. That means that each unit brings in between $3,328 and $4,288 per month for Flamingo Crossings Village. Between $3,300 a month and $4,300 a month for a glorified dorm room, essentially. It's slightly bigger and slightly nicer than a dorm room. A quick Zillow search shows that there are 5-bedroom, 4,000 square foot houses for rent for that price in Central Florida. You and your 3 roommates could leave there and get a mansion for the same cost as you are paying for your little shared bedroom Flamingo Crossings apartment.
And if you do rent that house, you probably all have a parking spot.
Yeah, which is more than can be said about Flamingo. Most people, the vast majority of people that tried to get a parking spot were not able to do so. There is a limited amount of parking spots. They give out a limited amount of parking decals, which you have to pay for if I remember correctly. I was fortunate enough to get one because I literally, the second I was able to, I clicked the button. If you were a half a second slow, sold out, gone. Couldn't get a parking pass, couldn't bring your car. Which means you're stuck with using the bus transportation, which you could probably talk more about than I could.
Oh yeah, the bus transportation is awful. You never know if the bus is gonna be on time, if it's gonna leave the stop early, so you're not gonna catch it. If it's going to get you to work. It has like a map of where the bus is gonna stop, but sometimes the bus just will not go to certain places and just skip over those, so who knows if you're gonna make it to work. And they break down all the time. Like you would be on one bus and pass another one that's broken down, or your bus would break down. It just was not reliable at all. And
in addition to that, for groceries and stuff, it was a pain too, right?
Yeah. I think there were 2 days out of the week where it went to like the super Target, and then every other day it went to a small Target that barely had any groceries.
It's the only Target I've ever been in where you can see the back of the store as soon as you walk in.
Yeah. And then you had to haul them all onto the bus. It just wasn't ideal.
You know, and if you don't have a car, forget about going anywhere other than work in the grocery store. I mean, it takes you to the parks too, because that's where people work. But like, you want to go to a restaurant, you got to take an Uber. You want to go to a bar, you got to take an Uber. You want to go to Universal, you got to take an Uber. You want to go to the doctor, you probably have to take an Uber.
Yeah.
And when I had this meeting with this like programs lady, she brought up the buses as like some big benefit to the program. When I was talking about like how absurd the price is for rent at Flamingo, she's like, well, it comes with all these great benefits like the bus transportation. She's like, all these people use the bus transportation. I'm like, the only reason people use the bus transportation is because you won't let them have a car. They want to bring a car. They don't want to use the buses. They have to use the buses. You didn't give them another option. All right, let's talk demographics here. So the college program participants, if I had to make a prediction, I would say are about 85% women, and then of the 15% men, probably 10% of that 15 are gay men, and only 5% are straight men, which has pros and cons depending on who you are and what you're looking for. If you are a guy that needs some masculine energy around you sometimes, you're probably out of luck. If you are a guy that is looking for women to be with, you are definitely in luck. In addition to that, it's probably also beneficial if you're a gay guy. I think there's probably a greater ratio of other gay men there than there would be out in the wilderness in the real world. But if you are a woman, good luck.
I mean, if you're a woman that's looking for other women, you're probably good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, probably, yeah.
When socializing with other people, either when you get down to Florida or before your program starts, I feel like you want to make sure that whoever you're talking to has the same start date as you. That way you are like going through the program together. You're not making friends with someone who's already been there or having to wait weeks for another person to get there.
It sounds weird when you phrase it like that. It sounds like you're saying like, don't be friends with certain types of people. But no, the real reason for that, she's right. The reason for that is like anyone that's been there for at least a week has already made friends. Like they're set. They're not looking for any more friends. They have their friend group already. It's very, very easy to make friends if you're talking to people that are getting there the same time as you, that are in the same boat as you, that also don't know anyone, right? Everyone wants to make friends when they first get there. But when people have friends, they don't really want to make more friends.
Yeah.
So most of your friends are going to be people that have the same arrival date as you and people you work with, because as we mentioned earlier, you're going to be working an insane amount of hours. So you're going to be with those people a lot. So I'd recommend, like, before you get down there, if you want to hop in some group chats or something, that's what I did. I was in a group chat with people that have the same arrival date. That way, once you get there, you can meet up with those people, hang out with those people, because they're also looking for that, right? They're also looking to have friends, to meet people, to do things, because they also don't know anyone. And also go to, I don't know if I'm sure they still do. When we were down there, they would have a welcome event the week that you got there. Go to the welcome event. Because everyone else at that welcome event, it's awful, by the way. It's cringe.
So lame.
Yeah, it's like a middle school dance, but everyone else that's there is also new.
So, is the DCP worth it? Well, it all depends on what you want out of it.
If you are going into the program because you want to make some money, it is not worth it. I actually left with less money in my bank account than when I went down there, and that is partially due to spending money on drinks in Epcot during my days off, which adds up very quickly at $15 or more a drink. But even if I didn't do that, even if I was kind of frugal with my money, it's very, very, very hard to make money when you're only getting $14 an hour and your rent is as high as it is. So if money, if you're going into this thinking, oh, it would be a cool way to make money, you're not going to make that much money. You're barely going to make any money if you do even, do more than break even. So if that's what you're looking for, not worth it.
If you're expecting to have free time, this is definitely not worth it. You're working 6 days a week, sometimes over 40 hours a week, and in order to have the free time, there would have to be extreme changes made to the program.
If you're not the biggest Disney fan, but you still think this would be a cool experience, it'd be kind of fun, you'd have the option to do, cool things, not worth it. You will be too frustrated by the lack of money that you're making and also the lack of time you have to do free things, and too frustrated by the amount of hours that you're working to really enjoy the experience much if you aren't already someone that really likes being surrounded by Disney things.
If you want to work at Disney and you're thinking this is my way in, not worth it. Just apply part-time or full-time. You'll get so many more benefits, you'll have a say over your scheduling, you'll get paid more, and you can probably save money on rent by living somewhere other than Flamingo Crossings.
If you are already a big Disney fan and you want to experience the parks and the resort in general from a different perspective, and you don't really care too much about what specific role you're doing, then it is worth it. If you can enjoy the work and appreciate the work because of the different perspective that it gives you, if you don't mind working long hours, and you're willing to work those long hours to be able to go to the parks maybe once a week or once every other week, then it's worth it. It's still fun. There are still benefits to being there. And if you like Disney enough to overlook the long hours or even to enjoy the long hours, then you are pretty much the only group of person, the only category of person that I think in its current state or in the state it was in when we did the program that it would be worth it for. If they get rid of the reservation system, if they bring back role preferences, if they cap you at 5 days a week unless you volunteer to work more than 5 days a week, I think these things would make the college program worth it and enjoyable for other types of people. But as of right now, when you're working 6 days a week, when you're working 45 to 55 hours a week, when you have no say over what job you're doing, I think you have to be a really specific kind of person for the college program to be a worthwhile experience.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Subscribe to our channel for more Disney content, and we'll see you in the future.